From the Presidential Palace, Manila, Dateline Malacañang.
Good day, this is Dateline Malacañang, and here are the news. Malacañang said the government is implementing reforms to support economic growth despite recent downward revisions in the Philippines' growth outlook for 2025 and 2026 by several international financial institutions. Palace Press Officer and Communications Undersecretary Attorney Claire Castro said the government has taken note of the revised forecast by the Asian Development Bank, World Bank, S&P Global, and the ASEAN Plus 3 Macroeconomic Research Office or AMRO ahead of the release of the full year 2025 gross domestic product or GDP figures. She noted, however, that the Philippine economy still posted 5% growth in the first 3 quarters of 2025, although more prudent government spending, particularly on infrastructure, affected growth in the fourth quarter amid the investigation into anomalous flood control projects.
The government takes note of the recent downward revisions by international financial institutions to the Philippines fiscal year 2025 GDP growth forecast ahead of the official GDP release. These revisions reflect lingering global uncertainties, tighter financial conditions, and the moderation in domestic activity observed in the third quarter this year. Nonetheless, the Philippine economy grew by 5.0% in the first 3 quarters of 2025, and we acknowledge that more prudent government expenditures, especially on infrastructure due to the flood control scandal, affected growth in the fourth quarter. Nevertheless, the medium-term growth trajectory remains intact, with economic expansion expected to rebound gradually starting in 2026 and strengthen further over the medium term as growth-enhancing reforms take effect.
Castro added that Department of Economy, Planning and Development or DepDev Secretary Arsenio Balisacan is expected to issue a separate statement on the matter following the official GDP report. Asked about the administration missing its GDP growth target for the fourth time under Philippine President Ferdinand R. Marcos Jr., Castro said the president remains firm in pursuing investigations into questionable flood control projects, even if these have affected economic activity. She cited successive natural disasters, including earthquakes and floods, as additional factors that weighed in on the country's economic growth.
Well, sabi naman ng Pangulo, pagdadaanan po talaga to dahil pinili po niya na magkaroon ng pag-iimbestiga patungkol po sa mga anomalyang flood control projects. Yan naman din po ang naging factor. Isa sa mga factor na nakaapekto sa ating economic growth. At maliban po dyan, sunod-sunod ang paglindol, sunod-sunod ang pagbaha at pag-ulan, or rather bagyo. Inasahan ito at muli hindi niya pa rin pahihinto ang pag-iimbestiga tungkol sa mga anomalyang flood control project. Pero inutos po niya na mas pagandahin pa po ang ating plano para mas magkaroon ng maraming trabaho, mag-generate ng income, pati po ng mga turismo. Isa lamang po ito sa mga agenda po na gagawin ng ating mga ahensya ng gobyerno.
Castro said the president has been briefed on the GDP report, which attributed the slowdown in growth to lingering geopolitical tensions and the impact of the flood control issue on disbursements and investments. She said ongoing reforms in budgeting, disbursement, and project monitoring, combined with investor-friendly policies and sound macroeconomic fundamentals, are expected to support stronger growth moving forward. Citing then Special Assistant to the President for Investment and Economic Affairs Secretary Frederick Go Castro said President Marcos wants to attract more investments to generate quality jobs, raise employment, and reduce poverty. Castro also ensured that inflation is well controlled. Despite the economic impact of the investigations, Castro stressed that the administration remains committed to addressing corruption.
Slowdown in growth last year and lower projected growth this year are the result of lingering geopolitical tensions and the impact of the flood control issue on disbursement and investment. Once the reforms on budgeting and disbursements and project monitoring initiated last year take ground, and with recent investor-friendly reforms and sound macroeconomic fundamentals, we could expect better GDP growth in the coming periods. Gusto ng Pangulo ay dumami ang investments para magkaroon ng maraming quality jobs and higher employment to reduce poverty. Inflation is well controlled at pinapaalala ng Pangulo na bantayan ng gobyerno para po it will remain low. Yan po ay ayon po kay Secretary Frederick Go. Pero yun nga po, muli nating uulitin. At dahil nga dito sa maraming naging ingay na dala ng pag-iimbestiga ng maanumalyang flood control project, talaga po nakaapekto sa ekonomiya. Pero wala pong magagawa kung hindi talaga pong linisin ang ating bansa mula sa korupsyon at kailangan magpaimbestiga para mapanagot ang mga sangkot. Dahil kung hindi ngayon, kailan? Kung hindi ang Pangulong Marcos Jr., sino?
Palace Press Officer and Communications Undersecretary Attorney Claire Castro.
Dateline Malacañang.
Philippine President Ferdinand R. Marcos Jr. urged the Philippine National Police or PNP to provide a visible, disciplined, and trusted service, stressing that law enforcement must be under civilian authority. In a video message for the PNP Day, President Marcos lauded a 228,000-strong police force for their efforts to deliver people-centered service and ensure public safety. President Marcos acknowledged that since the PNP's inception on January 29, 1991, through Republic Act 6975, police work has become more demanding. Many of the police officers nevertheless have risen to the challenges, President Marcos said, recognizing their continuing commitment to deliver service that is grounded in professionalism, integrity, and accountability. President Marcos vowed to continue providing support to the PNP as it enhances its operational capabilities and strengthens community partnerships. The PNP Day 2026 carries the theme, Serbisyong nararamdaman, kapulisang maaasahan, highlighting the police force's continuing commitment to deliver genuine, people-centered police service.
This occasion is a reminder why the PNP was organized in 1991, to implement the constitutional mandate that law enforcement must be under civilian authority. Since then, the work of the police has become more demanding. The Filipino people expect effectiveness, require our police to arrive and provide help quickly, and demand respectful and competent law enforcers. Many have risen to the challenges of these demands. So on this PNP Day, we also recognize officers and units who have met these expectations, as well as the stakeholders who help the PNP in building and strengthening relations with the community. The awards conferred today honor personnel who delivered results on the ground through effective operations, improved service delivery, and leadership that raise standards within their units. These examples matter because they show that professionalism is built through daily decisions and authority is exercised with restraint and with fairness. We are committed to strengthening training that improves decision-making in very real situations, investing in systems that shorten response times, and enforcing accountability mechanisms that protect both the public and the honest police officer. As we build a bagong Pilipinas, peace and order remain fundamental for growth and public confidence. I ask every member of the PNP to focus on what matters most: visible presence, disciplined conduct, and service that communities can trust. These are the actions that steadily rebuild the confidence and give meaning to the badge that you wear.
Philippine President Ferdinand R. Marcos Jr.
Dateline Malacañang.
Philippine President Ferdinand R. Marcos Jr. administered the oath of office to General Jose Melencio Nartates Jr. as the new chief of the Philippine National Police or PNP. The oath-taking ceremony, which included the donning of Nartates' four-star rank, was held at Malacañang Palace in Manila. In a press briefing, Palace Press Officer and Communications Undersecretary Attorney Claire Castro said President Marcos vouched for Nartates' competence to lead the entire police force.
Nagpaabot ng pagbati at suporta ang Pangulo kay General Nartates para sa kanyang husay sa pamumuno sa hanay ng kapulisan. Kinilala rin ng Pangulo ang mga mahalagang papel na ginampanan ng kapulisan sa pagpapanatili ng kaayusan at seguridad sa bansa. Congratulations po kay General Nartates Jr.
The 32nd PNP Chief Nartates was given arrival honor shortly before noon upon returning to the PNP headquarters at Camp Crame in Quezon City. He was welcomed by Deputy Chief for Administration Lieutenant General Bernard Banac. In his speech, Nartates vowed to lead the police force in faithful service to the Constitution. Under his watch, Nartates said the PNP will enhance security for vital installations, manage crowd control, and anticipate threats before they place risk to the communities. Nartates said the PNP will also ensure integrity at all levels. Nartates has been serving as the acting PNP chief since August 2025 after his predecessor, General Nicolas Torre III, was relieved from post following a dispute in the reorganization in the police force. Torre officially retired on December 26, 2024, allowing Nartates to hold the four-star rank and assume the full-fledged role of the PNP chief. Nartates began his career with the PNP Special Action Force before moving into investigative and command assignments. He held several key positions within the PNP, including Director of the Finance Service from 2020 to 2022 before commanding the police forces of Ilocos Norte, Calabarzon, and the National Capital Region Police Office. He was later named as the Deputy Chief for Administration, the second highest post in the police force. The Department of the Interior and Local Government or DILG meanwhile congratulated Nartates on his promotion, lauding him for his exceptional leadership and dedication in guiding the men and women of the PNP. The DILG reaffirmed its support for Nartates as he advances efforts to restore professionalism within the ranks and uphold public trust in law enforcement. National Police Commission NAPOLCOM Vice Chairperson and Executive Officer Rafael Vicente Calinisan also congratulated Nartates on his well-deserved promotion. In a separate statement, Calinisan said the promotion marks a significant development in the enduring partnership between NAPOLCOM and the PNP, ushering in a renewed era of brotherhood, collaboration, and shared commitment to public service.
Dateline Malacañang.
Philippine President Ferdinand R. Marcos Jr. said he is now in stable condition and remains fit to perform his duties despite his doctor's advice to rest following a diverticulitis diagnosis. The Presidential Communications Office on Wednesday night released a video update on President Marcos' health. In the video, President Marcos said he is taking prescribed antibiotics and medication to treat diverticulitis and inflammation of small pouches in the colon. President Marcos said he returned to work on Monday, presiding over the 7th Economic and Development Council meeting at the Malacañang for over 2 hours to discuss major government projects awaiting approval. He noted that his condition is improving and that he can now eat solid food after a brief period of dietary restrictions to ease his stomach. President Marcos thanked the public for their well wishes and assured that government operations continue without disruption.
Okay na, ang giling ng mga doktor ko. Binigyan lang ako ng mga gamot. Tsaka patuloy pa rin yung aking antibiotics. Pero okay na ako. In fact, nakapag-EDC meeting na kami nung Lunes with most of the cabinet. So I'm back in pero medyo nagtatampo sa akin yung mga doktor ko. Kasi sinasabi nila, wag muna. Sabi ko, hindi ko naman pwede pag-antayin lahat ng mga nangyayari. So, tinuloy ko na lang. Maraming salamat sa lahat ng tao that have been concerned about my health at maraming nagpadala ng mga mensahe na gumaling ka na kagad. Sabi ko, at nagpapasalamat ako sa kanila. Thank you for your concern. But like I said, I got the best best possible medical care that you can have, and that's why I'm already back in harness. In fact, nung sinasabi magpahinga ka, medyo na bored ako nung weekend. Sinasabi ko, no, I have to do something. Sabi ko, so binasa ko na lang lahat ng brief ko. So, medyo up to date na ngayon ako. Sinabi ko sa inyo last week, ito yung mga inaantay na ako mamatay. Huwag kayong excited. Nasumobra na naman ang pagka-excited ninyo. Andito pa ako. I'm running the government. We're doing everything that needs to be done. Walang patid ang trabaho ng gobyerno.
In the video shared to Palace reporters, President Marcos was even seen playing with his dog Oreo. Meanwhile, the PCO condemned the circulation of what it described as fabricated and malicious claims regarding the president's health, including a fake medical document shared online. The PCO said Malacañang is reviewing legal options following the circulation of fabricated documents and false information. The PCO urged the public to rely only on official statements from authorized government sources and to refrain from amplifying unverified and malicious content.
Dateline Malacañang.
In related news, Malacañang Wednesday said there is no need for Philippine President Ferdinand R. Marcos Jr. to release a medical bulletin, stressing that his diagnosis of diverticulitis and inflammation of small pouches in the colon is not life-threatening. Speaking to reporters, Palace Press Officer and Communications Undersecretary Attorney Claire Castro said medical bulletins are issued only in cases involving serious illness. Castro stressed that the palace has been regularly updating the public on the president's health condition. Castro also urged the public not to believe what she described as made-up stories circulating about President Marcos's health, noting that the president continues to carry out his official duties. She made a statement in response to social media posts claiming that President Marcos's acute diverticulitis had severely deteriorated due to drug use. Despite his doctor's advice to rest, Castro said the president continues to attend activities and hold private meetings.
Kaya masasabi po natin na gumaganda, umiigi, umaayos po ang kalusugan ng Pangulo. Matapos po siyang ma-diagnose ng doktor patungkol sa diverticulitis. Kung unknown number yan, di unknown din ang source niyan. So kung unknown ang source niyan, so malamang gumagawa ng kwento yan. So huwag natin masyadong paniwalaan ng mga kumakalat sa social media nang walang hindi verified at walang ibang source. Sa ngayon po, hindi po natin masasabi. At ang sabi nga po ni E.S. Ralph Recto ay pinapa-relax muna ang ating Pangulo. Pero sabi po natin, umattend po siya ng activity ngayon, nakakapagkaroon po siya ng private meetings. So umiigi po ang kalusugan ng Pangulo. Hindi po tayo maaaring magbigay ng anumang opinyon kung hindi naman manggagaling mismo sa doktor ng Pangulo at hindi manggagaling sa Pangulo. Sinabi po ng Pangulo, hindi po life-threatening, nakaramdam po siya ng konting sakit. At yan naman po ay tinutugunan ng kanyang mga doktor. At ngayon po ay nakikita natin sa iba-ibang pang activities katulad po ng oath-taking sa harapan po mismo ni General Nartates. Makikita at naka-attend pa po siya ng EDC. Halos umabot po yata ito ng 2 oras. So, hindi po tayo makakatugon sa mga source na hindi nababanggit kung kanino galing. Sa ating pagkakaalam po, pagka naglabas ng medical bulletin, dapat si serious illness. Kung sinabi ng Pangulo na hindi ito life-threatening, so ba't kailanganin po sa ngayon ang medical treatment? Medical bulletin. Samantalang kami naman po ay nagpo-provide sa inyo kung ano ang kalagayan ng kalusugan ng Pangulo.
Presidential Communications Office Acting Secretary Dave Gomez said President Marcos may delegate his cabinet alter egos to attend other public engagements as he focuses on critical presidential duties.
Dateline Malacañang.
In other Dateline Malacañang news, Philippine President Ferdinand R. Marcos Jr. said his son, House Majority Leader Ferdinand Alexander Sandro Marcos, acted properly when he recused himself from all impeachment proceedings against him. In a video released by the Presidential Communications Office, President Marcos said he learned about his son's move from the news and not directly from him. President Marcos expressed support for his son's decision, citing the Ilocos Norte 1st District Congressman's natural bias for him. President Marcos said the inhibition ensures the impartiality and credibility of the proceedings. The young Marcos announced that he would be recusing himself from the proceedings after a second impeachment complaint was filed Monday against the president. He stressed that while he is fully aware that the rules do not require his inhibition, leadership sometimes calls for restraint rather than participation. Malacañang praised Representative Marcos's move, calling it proper and statesman-like.
Hindi. Ang katotohanan, hindi nabalitaan ko sa news din. Hindi niya sinasabi sa akin. Pero tama yung ginagawa niya. That's very proper. Dahil I am his father. And siyempre meron siyang bias for me. Kahit pilitin mo na walang bias, meron talaga siya. Sana naman magkabayas siya, no? Dahil anak mo siya. But,
Pero hindi, sir, eh. Hindi, eh.
Hindi, pero tama yan. He should recuse himself. He should remove himself from the process so that the process can be seen to be fair and proper.
Philippine President Ferdinand R. Marcos Jr.
Dateline Malacañang.
Philippine President Ferdinand R. Marcos Jr. emphasized the crucial role of public servants in sustaining a strong and resilient republic, honoring them for working quietly behind the scenes to serve the Filipino people. During the annual awarding ceremony for outstanding government workers at the Malacañang Palace in Manila, President Marcos said that the strength of the nation depends on the integrity and dedication of government employees. He emphasized that public service is not limited to those in high-ranking positions, noting that every employee, regardless of rank, can contribute meaningfully to the nation. He encouraged them to continue embodying the values of a bagong Pilipino, disciplined, competent, and patriotic citizens committed to nation building. President Marcos emphasized that the republic's strength relies not only on leaders but also on the countless government employees who serve faithfully every day. The president's speech was delivered by Executive Secretary Ralph Recto.
Kayo ang patunay na ang diwa ng tapat na paglilingkod ay buhay sa ating pamahalaan. Sa gitna ng dilim at ingay, kayo ang hibla ng liwanag na nagbibigay pag-asa sa ating sambayanan. Kayo ang patunay na maraming mabubuting empleyado sa ating pamahalaan. Kayo ang patunay na hindi kailangan maging tanyag upang tumulong sa bayan. At kayo ang patunay na anumang antas ng tungkulin, may kakayahang ang bawat isa na maglingkod ng may dangal. Naniniwala ako na hanggat may lingkod bayang katulad ninyo, mananatiling matatag ang ating republika. Sa ngalan ng sambayan ng Pilipino, maraming salamat sa inyong katapatan, sipag at malasakit. Patuloy ninyong isabuhay ang diwa ng bagong Pilipino. Disiplinado, mahusay, at mapagmahal sa bayan.
The awards recognize exemplary public servants in 3 categories: Gawad Lingkod Bayan for programs with broad and long-term national impact, Gawad Dangal ng Bayan for adherence to the Code of Conduct and Ethical Standards, and Gawad Pag-asa for innovative initiatives with lasting impact beyond individual agencies. President Marcos cited specific examples of award-winning programs including livelihood projects and cooperatives for fisher folk, revitalization of the abaca industry, and and the creation of innovation centers to support local businesses. He also lauded initiatives that enhance public safety and healthcare, such as providing safety equipment for students during natural disasters and improving healthcare services in remote communities. President Marcos said public service is essential to the continued growth and stability of the nation.
Dateline Malacañang.
Finally, for Dateline Malacañang, Philippine President Ferdinand R. Marcos Jr. called for sustainable and inclusive tourism as the Philippines, this year's Association of Southeast Asian Nations or ASEAN Chair, formally opened the ASEAN Tourism Forum ATF 2026 in Cebu. During the opening of the AFT 2026, President Marcos underscored the crucial role of the tourism sector as a driver of opportunity for economies and communities. President Marcos said a major milestone under the ATF is the completion and adoption of the ASEAN Tourism Sector Plan 2026-2030, which sets a clear and unified course of advancing sustainable and inclusive tourism across the region. He said a regional tourism roadmap is designed to enrich visitor experience, empower both small and large-scale enterprises, and strengthen ASEAN's competitiveness in the global market. President Marcos said the Philippines ASEAN chairship is guided by 5 strategic thrusts called SAIL ASEAN or SAIL-A, which stands for strengthening trade and investment linkages, accelerating digital transformation, integrating ASEAN's MSME development agenda, leveraging the creative economy and innovation, and advancing sustainable and inclusive economies. He said the strategic thrust would provide direction and balance to ASEAN member states' shared journey as they work to boost tourism, which he described as a key driver of growth when fueled by vision and innovation. President Marcos reaffirmed the Philippines' commitment to advancing ASEAN members' collective interests and steering the region toward shared growth. The president's speech was delivered by Tourism Secretary Cristina Frasco.
In many ways, this roadmap reflects ASEAN's larger direction: growth that is innovative, development that is environmentally sound, and progress that prioritizes the welfare of the people. These priorities attest to tourism's power to drive growth when fueled with vision and innovation. Here in the Philippines, tourism continues to uplift not only destinations but also lives. It supports Filipino farmers, fisherfolk, creatives, transport providers, hospitality service providers, and entrepreneurs. We strive to ensure that our local communities truly benefit from showcasing our heritage and highlighting the unique identity of our people. These observations and realities resonate across our region. When tourism is inclusive, it becomes empowering. When policies are carried out with care, they become sustainable. As we look to the future, the Philippines invites all ASEAN member states and partners to move with us and be part of this journey. I share with you the sense of confidence and optimism that ASEAN tourism will continue to strive.
Tourism Secretary Cristina Frasco.
Dateline Malacañang.
That is all for today's Dateline Malacañang. For Radyo Pilipinas World Service, this has been Bea Gaza-de Guzman.
From the Presidential Palace, Manila, Dateline Malacañang.